Ladies and gentlemen, the Florida State wide receivers were the position group with the biggest improvement in 2022. Let's talk about them heading into 2023 depth chart. Who we think is going to surprise us the next season on this next edition of Locked On Seminoles. Dave, let's ride.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drake here, and today in Stream Yard, I got Mr. David Wise. David, what's looking good looking?
Drake, another great day. I'm here to give. I hope everybody's here to receive. You're going to be receiving some receiver talk today. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to be better with your words with folks. We want to thank each and every single one of you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every single day, and all for all love and support. And I think we just hit 2,000, but please, just in case, hit the subscribe button at the tippy top, ding little bell, and then like this video so you know when new content drops. But Dave, you're right. We just ended the season of giving, so now let's talk about some receiver talk. Wide receivers heading into last season was probably the group that we were most excited about, mainly because the bar had been in hell for the previous two seasons, right? And something that we saw the additions of Mycah Pittman and Johnny Wilson from the portal. Winston Wright, unfortunately, wasn't able to play last year, but he actually is returning to the team this upcoming season and should probably hopefully be replicating the or even surpassing the performance and production of Ontario Wilson, who's on to the NFL. Dave, heading into last season, what did you make? What were your expectations for that position group, and how did they meet them or exceed them for you?
I think the wide receiver room heading into this last season, like you said, I think had the most buzz around it in terms of the most variance between this could be really good or this could be really bad. I think it was the position we knew the least about going into last year. Just with all the with the fact that we had all the transfers coming in and we weren't sure how they were gonna, perform, much less like mesh into the locker room. And are the transfers gonna be all new starters? It turns out the answer to that was yes. The transfers came in and supplanted basically everyone except for Pokey Wilson, who had a really nice year. But I think the expectations were fairly high for everybody. Just people saw Johnny Wilson as a massive receiver.
I mean, were they that high though?
I do. I do. I do think
Okay.
so. I, I
Okay.
think I think people thought, like, look, Johnny Wilson was this blue chip receiver, 6'7", like they love to talk about on the broadcast every time. Mycah Pittman was a former 4-star. And I think, obviously Winston Wright was all conference at West Virginia. So before his injury, especially, I think people thought Winston Wright was going to be the best receiver coming in. So I think people thought we had 3 receivers coming in who were going to compete for a starting playing time immediately. And that I think we said we expect one of them to pop. And I think that's kind of exactly what happened, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. I think the expectations for the room were kind of not high, but much better. But also I was saying before, the production of the wide receiver room for the two seasons before was kind of low. But I think individually, I think us on the show here, we expected them to do well, but we still had those caveats where Johnny, we knew that he had the severe drop issues over at Arizona State. Mycah Pittman wasn't utilized that much actually over at Oregon, and also with Mike Novell probably being at the time a run first offense to hopefully be able to, pass to him enough to keep him happy. And then Winston Wright was the biggest sure thing because he was all conference. He was a great player, especially with a kind of, I want to say, lackluster quarterback play actually at West Virginia. But then unfortunately, you're right, he did suffer the injury in the car accident. Thankfully, he's done a full and speedy recovery right now. He's participating in tour duty. And we expect him to be a full participant for 2023. That's hopefully what we're tracking towards. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's the best way probably I think I would put it.
Yeah, and so I think overall we had some pretty relatively high hopes for this unit to answer that question and round it out. Um, it's I guess if you want to pivot to, how that relates to what we expect this year, I think there remains a lot of unknown. I think still because again, we know what we have, I think, in Johnny Wilson. I think there are things to work on. Like consistency for sure. Not dropping the easy ones. It's funny because Johnny Wilson makes a lot of the hard catches but drops the easy ones sometimes.
Just throw him, like, stuff that's, like, literally one-handed catches or, like, high
Right.
pointing a ball. He will never drop it's really funny because like, I'm like, I understand the thinking behind that because like, I think I do this sometimes too. I'm like, it's like the hard stuff is easy, the simple stuff is what, kinda, like, slows you down, but I was like, "Johnny, it's you got this, man. I believe in you. You got
Right.
this."
So there's room for improvement there, which is kind of a scary proposition considering how well Johnny Wilson played overall. Um, I think Mycah Pittman, I don't know. I mean, will he see more opportunities this year? Obviously Malik McLean's going to be gone, but we have Winston Wright stepping in, who's I imagine going to start probably pretty quickly. So there's going to be a logjam at wide receiver again, which is why you saw Malik McLean leave, and now he landed at Penn State. Good for him. But there's too many snaps to be had and not enough snaps to go around at wide receiver. I think, like I said, I think Mycah Pittman was great this last year. Every time he gets the ball, he's fighting for every inch, and so that's great to have, especially for a guy that's going to work over the middle of the field. Um, in terms of known quantities, uh, you have the guys that have already been here on the roster that probably a lot of people forget about at this point because of the newcomers. But you know, um, we still have guys like Kentron, Portier, and Darrion Williamson who last
Mhm.
year, especially towards the end of the season and when Darrion Williamson was healthy, you saw good performances out of both of them. I think they both gave you a lot of hope going into this year. So I think there's a good combination of homegrown, or I guess system grown talent that's been here for a couple years now that hasn't really had too much opportunity, but that showed some stuff last year, combined with the guys returning and a new influx of talent that I'm sure we'll get to. It feels just it. I mean, if the hopes feel higher for the room this year than last year, I mean, just if nothing else, other than we've seen what that new talent coming in last year looks like.
No, I completely agree, and I think overall we see FSU. I think currently has 11 wide receivers in the roster with Malik McLean, like you're saying, transferred to Penn State. Keyshawn Helton finding a landing spot over with the Cincinnati Bearcats. And you forgot to mention players like a Ja'Kai Douglas, who I think we always say that he's probably the most forgotten about player, even though he's probably one of the more fun dynamic players. But also we forgot that he was injured for a majority of last season. And then Deuce Spann, the Illinois transfer. That's basically we see he's a burner. He only had 5 catches in 2021, but those 5 catches, I'm pretty sure like 3 or 4 of them were for touchdowns. Then you have the freshman Hykeem Williams, Vandrevius, all day Dre Jacobs, and then you have Darren Goldie Lawrence. It's really the expectations are very high for this team, and sorry, not very high. I think they're higher than they have been for the past few years. I think that the bar keeps getting higher and higher and higher for them to meet because of basically the wide receiver play we've been saying has been lackluster and also been limiting this offense as a whole with lack of separation, with lack of consistency, a lot of drops. But right now, you see basically this past season where Jordan Travis took the next step as a pure passing QB, actually probably an elite pure passing QB, excuse me. And now you're seeing with actually when you have weapons to play around you, your offense is able to hum at an elite level. And you know also is an elite level, Dave,
Yeah, it's what's that, Drake?
and that is our friends over at BetOnline, folks. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your latest sports action. And since we only have a few more of these left, let's do one more Fade Dave segment of the day, of the week, of the millennia, of the year, of the season. Dave,
Yep.
the Jacksonville Jaguars won last week. They beat the Chargers. And Trevor Lawrence, he threw I think 3 picks in the first half, but ended up with 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. The Jaguars head over to Kansas City to the Chiefs, the home of Patrick Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes, depending on how you feel about the guy. The Jacksonville Jaguars right now currently plus 8.5 point dogs away from home. Dave, what are you taking in this game?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I hope Kansas City loses because Jackson Mahomes is the worst person on this planet. Just nothing good to say about that little fella. So, that
He's taller than you. He's like six
Jack,
six.
he's the worst person.
Also, like, come on,
I,
man. All right.
the worst person in the world. I hope they lose for that reason alone. But that's not what's going to happen here. Jacksonville sucks. Yeah, They're not good. I have no idea how they beat the Chargers. That was two crappy teams, the less crappy of which came out of that game. Yeah, Drake, you could do that face all you want. The Jags suck. I mean, go look at the advanced stats. This isn't like a novel thing. So Trevor Lawrence threw a million picks in the first half. I don't think he's going to throw as many in this game because I don't think the Chiefs' defense is all that overwhelming. But the Chiefs are going to win by 800. This isn't even going to be a fun game to watch. I'm not even going to watch it.
Well, Dave also doesn't watch NFL, folks, so take that with a grain of salt. And also, Kansas City Chiefs defense allows 34 points per game, and Jacksonville Jaguars have a top 10 scoring offense. But, folks, head on over to head on over to betonline.net today. Use promo code Locked On LOCKEDON to get a 100% welcome bonus on your first deposit, and take the Jags at plus 8.5 because you know what time it is, folks. It is Fade Dave. It is Fade Dave time, and hashtag Duval for all our fans out there. All right, Dave. It is now one of the more fun parts that we get to do, and that is our depth chart. Or what we can do from last season is the top 5 players that we feel how they should be in a pecking order for this team, for this position group. How do you want to go about this?
Let's do the second thing. I think that makes more sense. We see so much so much change, like play to play within the Norvell offense, that you'll go from two receivers to 5 receivers back to 1 receiver. I mean, it's all over the place. So the depth charts, I mean, you could do a depth chart. Obviously, we do release one, or we have to, but I think it changes so much.
It's not real. It's not real. It's
Right.
not real.
It's not real, right? So the five players at this position is going to change, I think, pretty drastically from right now to the season's end. I think names will fall off and show back up. So number 1 has to be easy. That's Johnny Wilson. Johnny Wilson.
You started right at 1? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Johnny Wilson probably could have gone pro. I'm not saying he would have been like a top draft pick or anything, but I think he would have been drafted if nothing else other than his body type. You can't teach 6'7", and you can't teach 6'7" and able to jump in high point of football and run reasonably good routes. So Johnny Wilson obviously had a massive year last year. Anytime he was on the broadcast, the announcers would stop talking about him. He is a target that makes it easier for everybody else on the field to do their job because he garners so much attention. I fully expect him to have another 1,000-yard season this year. Depending on how well this offense hums, you could see like a 10 touchdown season out of him too. And that wouldn't surprise me at all. He is what's the opposite of victim of circumstance? He's the benefactor of circumstance, where just, kind of Jordan Travis grew up. The offensive line's doing better. He has receivers around him that are capable and competent now. So all the circumstances that are in place right now at Florida State allowed Johnny Wilson to flourish last year.
Yeah, he benefited from the situation. I do agree also that I think Johnny Wilson basically will be your number 1 wide receiver. I'm not going to belabor the point there. I think you put it so eloquently there. I think number 2, my personal opinion, is going to be Mycah Pittman because I think Mycah Pittman is such an important player for this team. He was someone that I don't think actually suffered the case of the drops when it mattered super most actually last season. And also when the ball was in his hands, I think you said it perfectly last segment where he was very tough to bring down. He's got kind of that pit bulldog mentality. He is a tough kid when he's actually out there in space and people are trying to bring him down. If you need a surefire kind of 5 to 6 yards or a decent or a perfect route run, I will probably go honestly with Mycah Pittman. I think Mycah Pittman will be my number 2 there.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that makes sense in light of the fact that we don't know exactly what we're going to get out of Winston Wright, how he's going to look.
That's exactly why. Because I have Winston, I think, at 4 or 5 probably.
But I'm gonna go with a little surprise here. I'm gonna put Winston Wright at 2. I think people probably haven't seen or read or know much about what Winston Wright did at West Virginia. I mean, that dude caught 700 yards and 5 touchdowns his last season at West Virginia. He's never had a receiving percentage under 73%, so he does not drop footballs when they're thrown his way and they're catchable. That's something that I think will be a breath of fresh air for this team. A guy who catches balls that are thrown to him very, very reliably. For as much production as we had last year, like I said, the drops remained an issue. I think if we have a guy out there who is very shorthanded and is not going to drop the easy ones, I think that keeps the chains moving. I think that keeps you in the opposite of the doghouse, that keeps you in the coach's good graces. And I think that that's something there's very few things I think at this point that are going to really help our team and our offense take the next step. I think consistency on the margins, like catching those easy ones and not being in 3rd and 9, being in 3rd and 2 instead. I think that's the difference for this team, and I think that's one thing Winston Wright brings.
No, I completely agree with that. Sorry, but I had to check my phone real quick. But no, I think that's really fair for that. My only thing is with Winston Wright, I know about all those things. I just don't know what player you're going to be getting basically after the accident, and also how the player's going to respond after full fall camp and also several games in the season, how he's going to be able to hold up. But quite frankly, I mean, modern medicine is really a marvel, and we actually want to see actually how he responds. And I'm pretty sure that he'll respond in full. My number 3 though is Kentron Portier. He's someone that you saw last season, like became a true red zone threat. Actually started catching the ball fully. It's a big body receiver. He's someone that definitely earned the trust and and has the chemistry with Jordan when it actually comes down to the nuts and bolts, basically being of those clutch situations. And so to me, with Kentron, aka Big Boy Tron, I think that's someone that number 3. And then number 4 for me is Winston Wright for what you listed above. It's just more that I need to see him actually be able to, I guess, withstand a full season, or even how he responds after a few harder games, because that lower leg injury was
I know.
devastating. It took him out for an entire season, and I want to see how he's able to respond, actually keep healthy for a full year, because when those pads come on and when you play real college football, it's going to hurt and it's going to
Yeah,
be bumps and bruises. So
I remember saying exactly what you just said about Trey Benson. I look like a giant idiot. Not doing that again.
oh
Number
yeah, no,
3.
no, no. I probably will look at India, because like the way he looks apparently like in those photos, I'm like he
Yeah,
looks good. He does look good.
he does. Um, so 3 is going to be Mycah Pittman for me. 4, I'm going to do a cop out. I'm going to go Kentron Portier or Darrion Williamson, just like our
No,
coaches
just pick
like
one.
to do
Just
on the
pick one.
depth
Just,
chart.
oh god damn it! Yeah, I'll
Yep.
let you have that for that reason.
Yep. So I don't know. One of them is going to step up. Uh, they both had several moments last year where they both look like competent receivers that could be trusted to be out there in the starting lineup, or like the if we're doing 4 or 5 wide. So I expect one of them to kind of be reliable and step up their production. Um, Number 5, I'm gonna go with a wild card here. Hykeem the Dream. I think,
Boy Keem at
yeah,
Twitter.
I think Hykeem Williams is a special talent at wide receiver. He's just he's just faster and quicker and more athletic and better than most of the players he's going to be across from. And you can't keep a guy that talented off the field. Go watch his high school highlights.
Yeah, he's
That
sick. He's
that's
sick.
that's a special player we have here, that we're lucky to have gotten on campus, and I fully expect by the end of the year for him to be in the starting lineup.
Well, you took mine because mine was gonna be Hykeem Williams. Was tempted to take Ja'Kai Douglas because I
Yeah.
feel bad whenever we leave him off this list, because he is still a really damn good player. He's still really fast. But yeah, when you watch Hykeem Williams' tape, it's like that's not a kid you bench.
Mhm.
That's a kid that's probably is sometimes starting towards the end of the year, because he is just that dynamic. There are a lot of wide receivers in this room, and as someone, I think Akeem has the highest ceiling, but also has the highest floor when it comes to speed, size, hands, and he just has that kind of mentality. What did you want in a wide receiver when he lines up across a another defensive back? So to me, I agree with you. Hakeem the Dream Williams, aka the Boy Keem. That's I think that's number 5 for us. And then, folks, actually after this quick commercial break and a word from our sponsors, we'll actually be going into who we think is going to be kind of the surprise here in the wide receiver room heading into 2023. Okay, Dave, we're towards the end of the show. As is tradition, I'm going to hand the ball off over to you. Take us home, heading on to this last segment.
Okay, Drake. So, like you said, we are doing who could be the surprise of this team. It's funny if you go look at our receiver room, we've mentioned pretty much everybody. It's not
Pretty
a
much so.
it's not a massive room. Ja'Kai Douglas is a sensible choice if you want to pick him for this one. Just you know, every like couple games, he has one of those big moments. He just has a penchant for making a big catch and making the most out of it. So I would understand if you went with that pick. That is not where I'm going, and I think I'm surprising myself a little bit going with this pick, but v I'm going with Vandrevius Jacobs. That right. We just gave you this speech about how you're not gonna be able to keep Hykeem Williams off the field, and I do believe that. Um, go look at what Vandrevius Jacobs did in high school. Just go watch his film, go read about kind of his skill set. That that kid, I think, is a replacement. I don't want to be mean here. Probably a better replacement for Pokey. Okay. And just the body type. He's 6 foot, 167 pounds. Obviously, he's going to do some growing in college, but he's fast. That kid makes plays. He's a playmaker by nature. And obviously, Hykeem Williams, I think, is on kind of a different level than any other receiver on this team. Just by virtue of being a 5 star, his athleticism is just different, like I said. But I think because we have Hykeem Williams in this class, people probably forget about how talented Vandrevius Jacobs is. And depending on how quickly he comes along, that's the kind of kid that either could end up redshirting, so there's a lot of variance here, or could end up with a starting spot on the team because he's proved impossible to keep off the field. So I'm really excited to see that because, like I said when we first started today's episode, all this talent, all this known production performance, we know what it is, but we also have these new guys coming in who are going to be X factors because they could push for starting time and starting spots. And this list that we've just given you in the second segment today could change drastically by end of the season.
No, I completely agree with that. Even though I will not agree with the Pokey Wilson slander because that man is going to be never replaceable for this team. But no, I get what you're saying with Vandrevius Jacobs that he has a skill set that definitely is actually reloading that spot that void that's left by Pokey. I'm not going to go with the freshman. I think I think we already did that with Hykeem Williams. I'm going to go with a player that's already been here and still developing. And we saw Dugans when he had the talent to develop wide receiver. He actually was able to. And that to me is going to be Deuce Spann, the transfer last year from Illinois. We mentioned him briefly, I think, earlier today that he actually did come in. He actually was part of the room. And that's someone that you could see he's a quarterback in high school, went to Illinois, transitioned over to wide receiver. I want to say this is only his second or third. Sorry, this is going to be his third year heading the season actually as a wide receiver. He's something like he's saying that size you can't teach. So I think he's 6'4", 6'5", extremely fast. It just needs if he's able to consistently get those hands, that's someone actually able to actually basically send out there and just rip the top off of defenses. And that to me is going to be very important for this team. Like you're saying, I don't think there's another step for this team to take offensively, but I think consistently wise, you're able to open up a little more plays for the playbook if you're able to actually have that true, deep ball threat. And that to me for pure circumstances, actually going to be Deuce Spann.
I tell you what, my answer to that is I hope so. I think it's all going to be a question of whether he can kind of control his emotions and play consistently, like you saw
Emotions.
you saw towards the end of last year when he had that big blow up on the sideline with Mike Norvell, and Mike Norvell got a lot of praise for how he handled that interaction. So obviously, when Deuce Spann either
Got a ball actually after that. I remember that because
he
he
did
actually he threw right back at him. He caught the ball,
put him
got a first down.
back in the very next drive and went right to him. Yes, that's right. But that whole situation presented because Deuce Spann, didn't make the play he wanted to make. That kid has all the physical tools. It's just a matter of understanding where to be on the field and executing in the moment. And I think that's
And not being too down on yourself if you mess up, which is
right.
it's hard for all of us to do that.
That's what I meant by the up here. Like, if you get in your own head, it's not all that much different than golfing. Like, you get in your own head while you're golfing, and your whole round's over. You're just nothing's gonna go right. So if you're able to get past that, and he's able to develop some kind of consistency, yeah, he's another one of those guys that very well could push for a starting spot on this team. There's only so many spots. Like I said, there are too many cooks in the kitchen. That is a very good problem to have, Drake. And I think it's exactly the situation we're in.
No, I completely agree with that. And it's something that's, we envy. I know some players that we haven't mentioned. I think Josh Burrell is going to be a name that, he's been hurt for a few seasons. I hope to see him actually have a full recovery, like, be able to be healthy heading into this next season. And folks, we want to be able to thank each and every single one of you for supporting us each step of the way. We have hit 2,000 subscribers and we wouldn't be able to do this without each and every single one of you. I love you. Dave loves you. Holly, Stacy, love you as well. Now, Dave, as always, send us home.
Yep. Everybody, like Drake said, we love you. Thank you for getting us to 2,000 subscribers. That is a milestone for us. And it is only because of you we are indebted to each and every one of you. Thank you. For the podcast, find us anywhere you find your podcast: Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Google Play, all the good places. For the YouTube, hit that like button if you could. Takes 2 seconds. Subscribe to the channel also takes 2 seconds. We would really appreciate that. Ding the little bell, turn your notifications on. You'll find out when our episodes drop. And as always, most importantly, leave us a comment. Give us your top 5 players for that position group. Give us your breakout or your unexpected, your surprise player, just like we did here today. We want to hear it from you.
And we want to hear each and every single one of you with your opinions on the Jada Rashad debacle, who officially has removed NLI from Florida and will not be attending there in the fall. But that's a discussion for a different day. This was Drake. That was Dave. And we'll see y'all next time on Locked On Seminoles. Take care, everybody.
Go Noles.